You've been told that losing belly fat is a simple math equation, calories in versus calories out. You've been lied to. If the eat less, move more mantra actually worked, you wouldn't be here, frustrated, staring at a scale that hasn't budged in weeks. The truth is, there is a hidden, invisible killer deep inside your abdomen that no amount of crunches or cardio can reach. It's not just fat. It's an active, toxic organ that's literally hijacking your hormones and blocking your progress. In this deep dive masterclass, I'm revealing the biological secret why your body is hoarding this weight despite your best efforts. I'm going to show you exactly how to bypass your genetics and reset your metabolic clock using a proven 3-step blueprint that actually works. Stop punishing yourself with generic diets that were designed to fail. It's time to stop guessing and start using the science of how to finally melt visceral fat and reclaim your health, starting right now. To understand why your belly fat feels like an invincible enemy, you first need to understand that not all fat is created equal. Think of your body as a high-end luxury apartment building. In this building, you have two very different types of tenants living inside your walls. The first type is subcutaneous fat. This is the fat you can pinch with your fingers, the stuff on your arms, legs, or just under the skin of your belly. Think of subcutaneous fat as the storage room in the basement of your apartment. It's where your body keeps extra boxes of energy for a rainy day. It might be cluttered, it might look messy, and you might wish it wasn't there, but for the most part, it's harmless. It just sits there, minding its own business, waiting to be used. But then there is the second type, visceral fat. This is the real reason you are struggling. Visceral fat doesn't live in the basement. It lives deep inside the structure of the building, wrapped tightly around your pipes, your electrical wiring, and your most expensive appliances, your heart, your liver, and your kidneys. Visceral fat is not a storage room. It is a toxic tenant. Imagine a tenant who doesn't just take up space, but actively tries to destroy the building from the inside out. This toxic tenant is biologically active. It doesn't just sit there. It acts like an independent rogue organ. It's constantly sending out hate mail in the form of inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. It's messing with your building's thermostat, your metabolism, leaking toxic waste into your plumbing, your bloodstream, and shouting so loud that your neighbors, your organs, can no longer hear the instructions from the building manager, your brain. This is the secret the fitness industry often ignores. You cannot evict a toxic tenant by just cleaning the basement. Doing endless crunches or cutting 100 calories is like buying a new rug for the storage room while the toxic tenant is literally setting fire to the curtains in the penthouse. You feel tired all the time? That's the tenant draining your power grid. You can't stop craving sugar? That's the tenant hijacking your communication system. Why is this approach so much more effective? Because once you realize that visceral fat is an active biological threat and not just extra weight, the way you fight it changes completely. You stop trying to burn it and start trying to starve its influence. But here is the million-dollar question. How did this toxic tenant get into your building in the first place? And more importantly, what is the master key that forces them to pack their bags and leave forever?
If visceral fat is the toxic tenant we talked about earlier, then insulin is the landlord who handed them the keys and unlocked the front door. To evict the tenant, you have to understand the landlord. Most people think fat loss is about willpower. It's not. It's about biochemistry. Specifically, it's about one hormone that dictates whether your body is in storage mode or burning mode. That hormone is insulin. Think of insulin as a security guard standing at the entrance of your cells. Every time you eat, especially when you eat processed carbs or sugar, your blood sugar levels spike. To protect you, your pancreas sends out the security guard to grab that sugar and shove it into your cells for energy. This is a normal, healthy process. But here is where the system breaks down. In our modern world, we are constantly eating. We snack while we work, we drink sugary lattes, and we eat late into the night. Because of this, the security guard, insulin, never goes home. He's on duty 24/7. When insulin is constantly present in your bloodstream, your cells eventually get tired of him knocking on the door. They start to ignore him. This is what scientists call insulin resistance. Imagine you're trying to pack a suitcase. At first, it's easy, but once the suitcase is full, you have to push and shove to get more in. Eventually, the zipper breaks. In your body, when your muscles and liver cells are full, insulin has nowhere left to put that excess energy. So it does the only thing it can. It drags that energy to the deep freezer, your visceral fat stores. And here is the most important sentence in this entire video, so listen closely. You cannot burn fat while your insulin levels are high. It is biologically impossible. Think about that. You could spend 2 hours on a treadmill sweating and gasping for air, but if you had a high-carb, healthy granola bar or a sports drink right before your workout, your insulin is spiked. High insulin sends a chemical signal to your body that says, store energy, do not touch the fat reserves. You're literally trying to drain a swimming pool while the garden hose is running at full blast. You're working harder, but you're getting nowhere. This is why you feel like you're doing everything right. The salads, the gym, the calorie counting, yet that stubborn belly fat stays exactly where it is. Let's talk about the 3 p.m. crash. Have you ever felt that sudden wave of exhaustion in the middle of the afternoon? That's not just getting older. That's an insulin roller coaster. You eat a high-carb lunch, your insulin spikes to handle the sugar, it overshoots the target, and your blood sugar crashes. Your brain, sensing an emergency, sends out a hunger alarm, making you crave more sugar. You grab a cookie or another coffee, and the cycle repeats. Every time you ride this roller coaster, you are feeding the toxic tenant. You're giving the landlord a reason to keep the doors wide open for more fat storage. So, how do we fix the landlord? How do we get the security guard to go off duty so your body can finally access its fat stores? The first step is closing the feeding window. We need to give your body long periods where insulin is at baseline. This isn't just about intermittent fasting as a trend, it's about a biological reset. When insulin drops, it triggers a master switch called glucagon. Glucagon is the anti-insulin. It's the janitor who comes in when the security guard leaves. Glucagon's only job is to go to the deep freezer, break the lock, and start burning that visceral fat for fuel. But before you think that just eating less sugar is the whole answer, I have to warn you. There's a shadow boss working behind the scenes. Even if you get your diet perfect, even if you cut every gram of sugar, there's another factor that can spike your insulin and keep you fat even if you're eating 0 calories. It's the silent engine of the modern world, and it's what we are diving into in the next milestone. Because if you're stressed, your body doesn't care about your diet. Are you ready to meet the shadow boss?
We just discussed how insulin is the landlord who unlocks the door for the toxic tenant. But now I need to introduce you to the shadow boss. This is the individual who controls the landlord from the shadows. You can have the most perfect, low-carb, organic diet in the world, but if the shadow boss is angry, you will not lose a single ounce of visceral fat. That shadow boss is a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone. In the ancient world, it was our best friend. If a saber-toothed tiger jumped out of the bushes, your brain would trigger your adrenal glands to dump a massive amount of cortisol into your system. This was the fight or flight response. Its job was simple: survival. To help you run faster or fight harder, cortisol would instantly dump a massive amount of glucose, sugar, from your liver into your bloodstream for quick energy. Now, here is the open loop you need to understand. Your body cannot tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and an angry email from your boss at 10 p.m. It cannot tell the difference between a life-threatening predator and the chronic stress of your mounting credit card debt, or the frustration of being stuck in 45 minutes of gridlock traffic. When you are chronically stressed,
Your shadow boss is constantly shouting. Your body thinks it is in a perpetual state of emergency, so it keeps dumping sugar into your blood to prepare you for a fight that never happens. And what did we learn in milestone 1? When blood sugar goes up, insulin must follow to mop it up. This is the biological trap. You aren't eating sugar, but your stress is creating sugar internally. Your insulin spikes to handle that stress sugar, and because you aren't actually running for your life or fighting a predator, that energy has nowhere to go. Insulin drags it straight to the deep freezer, your visceral fat stores. But it gets worse. Cortisol doesn't just store fat, it is a belly fat magnet. Science shows that deep abdominal fat, visceral fat, actually has 4 times more cortisol receptors than the fat just under your skin. This means that when cortisol is high, it specifically signals your body to deposit fat only in the most dangerous area, right around your internal organs. This is why you see people who have skinny arms and legs, but a hard, protruding belly. That is not a food belly, that is a stress belly. Now, let's talk about the tired but wired phenomenon. This is the rule of 15 seconds in action. If this sounds like you, pay very close attention. You spend all day exhausted, dragging yourself through work with caffeine, but as soon as your head hits the pillow at night, your brain starts racing. You're wide awake. This happens because your cortisol rhythm is inverted. Normally, cortisol should be high in the morning to wake you up and low at night so you can sleep. But chronic stress flips the switch. High nighttime cortisol blocks your production of melatonin, the sleep hormone. Without deep, restorative sleep, your body cannot repair its metabolism. In fact, just one night of poor sleep has been shown to increase insulin resistance by up to 40% the next day. You wake up the next morning feeling like a zombie. Your brain is screaming for a quick hit of energy, which leads to stress eating. You reach for the donuts, the bagels, or the extra-large latte. You aren't weak-willed. You are biologically compromised by the shadow boss. And here's the twist that shocks most people. Your 5 a.m. high-intensity workout might actually be making you fatter. If you're already chronically stressed, sleep-deprived, and running on cortisol, hitting a brutal CrossFit session or a 5-mile run at maximum intensity is seen by your body as more stress. You're throwing gasoline on the fire. Your cortisol skyrockets, your body goes into catabolic mode where it breaks down your hard-earned muscle for energy, and it clings to your belly fat even tighter as a survival mechanism. So, if working harder is the wrong answer, what is the right one? How do we fire the shadow boss and regain control? It starts with moving from high intensity to low efficiency. We need to convince your nervous system that the tiger is dead. We do this through a specific type of movement called LISS, Low Intensity Steady State Movement, and by fixing your sleep architecture. But even if you master your stress and fix your landlord, there is one final piece of the puzzle. You need the blueprints to rebuild the building. You need to know exactly how to reset the entire system so that the toxic tenant leaves and never comes back. Are you ready for the final milestone? The one where we put all these pieces together into a 3-step actionable roadmap?
Now that we've identified the enemies, it's time for the eviction protocol. This isn't a 30-day challenge or a quick fix that'll leave you rebounding in a month. This is about a fundamental biological reset. If you want that toxic tenant to pack their bags, you need to follow these 3 milestones precisely. Step 1. The nutritional anchor. Closing the feeding window. Remember our landlord, Insulin? We need to get him off duty. The most effective way isn't just what you eat, but when you eat. In the U.S., we're programmed to believe that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But if you wake up and immediately spike your insulin with a bowl of cereal or a piece of toast, you've just locked the fat-burning vault for the rest of the day. Instead, I want you to adopt the protein fiber anchor. Your first meal of the day should be a fortress of high-quality protein and cruciferous fibers. Protein has the highest thermic effect of food. It literally burns energy just to be digested, and it keeps insulin stable.
Fiber acts as a physical shield in your gut, slowing down the absorption of sugar and preventing those massive spikes that the shadow boss loves. By pushing your first meal just 2 or 3 hours later than usual, you create a low insulin zone where your body has no choice but to tap into visceral fat for fuel. You're essentially starving the tenant while feeding the building structure. Step 2. The movement paradox, the silent assassin. Here is where 90% of people get it wrong. They think to lose belly fat, they need to run until they collapse. Stop. If your cortisol is already high, chronic cardio is your enemy. To evict visceral fat, you need the silent assassin, walking. Yes, it sounds too simple to work, but the science is undeniable. Low-intensity, steady-state movement, specifically walking at a brisk pace for 30 to 45 minutes, is the only form of exercise that effectively burns fat without spiking the shadow boss, cortisol. When you walk, your body stays in a parasympathetic state, the rest and digest mode. It sends a signal to your brain that says, the tiger is dead. It's safe to release the stored energy. I want you to aim for 10,000 steps, but here is the secret hack. Take a 10-minute walk immediately after your largest meal. This postprandial walk acts like a sponge, soaking up the glucose in your blood before insulin even has a chance to store it as fat. The final step is the circadian hard reset. Finally, we have to fix the electrical system of the building. Your metabolism is governed by a 24-hour internal clock. If your light exposure is messed up, your cortisol will be messed up. The first thing you must do when you wake up is get direct sunlight into your eyes for at least 10 minutes. This resets your cortisol rhythm, ensuring it peaks in the morning when it should and drops at night. And when the sun goes down, you must become a digital hermit. The blue light from your phone and TV at 11 p.m. is a chemical signal that tells your brain it's high noon. This spikes your cortisol, kills melatonin, and guarantees that your body will spend the night storing fat instead of burning it. The synergistic effect. When you combine these three, the protein anchor, the silent assassin walk, and the circadian reset, you aren't just dieting anymore. You're changing the entire environment of the building. You're making it so uncomfortable and so inhospitable for the toxic tenant that they have no choice but to leave. But I have to be honest with you. Most people will watch this video, feel inspired for 5 minutes, and then go right back to their old habits. They will continue to let the shadow boss run their lives. Don't be most people. In the next section, I'm going to share the one fatal mistake that even health enthusiasts make, a mistake that can reverse all the progress we just talked about in a single afternoon. You need to know how to protect yourself from the healthy trap. Are you ready to see the evidence of how this works in the real world? Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds great in theory, but where is the proof? In a world full of fitness gurus and miracle pills, you should be skeptical. But the science of visceral fat isn't a theory. It's a biological reality confirmed by the most prestigious medical institutions in the world. Let's look at the hard data. Organizations like the Mayo Clinic and Harvard Medical School have published extensive research showing that visceral fat isn't just extra padding. It is a highly active endocrine organ. One landmark study tracked thousands of individuals and found that even in people with a normal body mass index, BMI, those with high levels of visceral fat had a significantly higher risk of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. This is the skinny fat trap we've been talking about. The evidence shows that your waistline is a far more accurate predictor of your health than the number on the bathroom scale. But I don't just want to show you numbers on a page. I want to show you what this looks like in the real world. Take the case of a client I'll call Mark. Mark was the classic overtrainer. He was 45 years old, doing 4 hours of intense cardio every week and eating a strictly low-calorie diet. Yet his belly wouldn't budge, and his doctor told him his blood pressure was skyrocketing. He was frustrated, exhausted, and ready to give up. When we looked at his data, his cortisol levels were through the roof. We didn't tell him to train harder, We did the opposite. We cut his intense cardio by 70%, replaced it with daily 30-minute walks, and moved his feeding window to stabilize his insulin. The result? In just 12 weeks, Mark didn't just lose weight, he lost 4 inches off his waist specifically. His blood pressure normalized, and for the first time in a decade, he woke up feeling energized instead of wired and tired. This wasn't magic, it was the result of stop fighting your biology and start working with it. The evidence is clear. When you address the landlord, insulin, and the shadow boss, cortisol, the toxic tenant has no choice but to leave. You've seen the science and you've seen the real-world transformation. But there is still one final warning you need to hear before you start this journey, because there are healthy habits you're likely doing right now that are secretly keeping that tenant in your building.
Wait, before you rush to the kitchen or lace up your running shoes, I have a moral obligation to warn you. Most of the health advice you see on social media is designed to sell you a supplement, not to fix your biology. One of the most dangerous errors is falling for the healthy trap. You think that organic green juice or that low-fat protein bar is helping you. In reality, it might be a toxic tenant in disguise. Many of these products are stripped of their natural fiber and loaded with hidden sugars like maltodextrin. When you consume them, you trigger an immediate insulin spike, locking your fat cells shut before you even finish your healthy snack. Another fatal mistake is the grind mentality. If you're a high-performing professional or a parent under massive chronic stress, your shadow boss, cortisol, is already at its limit. Adding a brutal, high-intensity workout on top of 5 hours of sleep is not discipline, it's biological sabotage. You aren't being lazy by choosing a 30-minute walk instead of a 5-mile run. You're being strategic with your hormones. Lastly, I have to be honest with you about the frame time. If you're looking for a magic pill to melt 20 pounds of visceral fat by next weekend, this blueprint isn't for you. We're playing the long game. We're repairing years of metabolic damage and hormonal imbalances. It takes consistency, patience, and the courage to go against the hustle culture. But the reward is a body that finally supports your life instead of draining it. Don't let the pursuit of perfect be the enemy of progress.
You now have the biological map to do what 95% of people fail to achieve. You know how to fire the shadow boss, reset the landlord, and finally evict that toxic tenant for good. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. I don't want you to just watch this. I want you to transform. So, here is your 7-day Metabolic Reset Challenge. Starting tomorrow, I want you to commit to just 2 things. First, delay your first meal by just 2 hours and make it a protein-fiber anchor. Second, take a 10-minute walk after your largest meal. That's it. No grueling gym sessions, no starvation. If you're ready to take back control of your health, I want you to comment the word reset below. It's a signal to yourself and this community that you're moving from learning to doing. But remember, fixing your belly fat is just the beginning. There is a specific biohack involving your cold exposure that can speed up this process by an additional 30%. Most people do it wrong and end up spiking their cortisol even higher. In my next video, I'm going to show you the exact ice-to-fire protocol to torch visceral fat while you sleep. You've lived with the toxic tenant long enough. It's time to take back your building. I'll see you in the next one.